The universe has a way of reminding you that even when you think you're alone, someone or something is watching. I learned that the hard way on Zifra 9, a planet that looked like it had been painted by an unhinged artist. Jagged crimson cliffs cut against swirling turquoise skies, phosphorescent flora that seemed to pulse with life, and rivers that glowed faintly in the dark. I had come as a scavenger, a loner seeking relics from the war that had ripped through this sector decades ago. I was expecting to become a part of the remnant story. Or for a soldier, no, a warrior unlike anything I'd ever seen, to change the course of my life. I remember the first time I saw her. I was crawling over a ridge, trying not to alert whatever predators might be drawn to the scent of flesh and metal. That's when I saw a movement ahead. A figure, tall and armored in something that gleamed like liquid obsidian. Her armor was jagged yet elegant, and I could see the faint, eerie glow of energy coursing along its seams. My instincts screamed danger. Zifra 9 wasn't friendly to strangers, and a lone alien soldier in these ruins meant one thing. Death was imminent. But she paused, not in surprise, not in confusion, but in a way that made the hair on my neck stand on end. Her stance softened, and the weapon she carried, a plasma lance, humming faintly with violet energy, lowered just slightly. It was the pause that did it, the hesitation that made her human in a way her race never intended. And I took my chance. I stepped out of cover, hands raised, making sure she saw I was a threat. My heart hammered. My voice shook when I whispered, I'm not here to fight. Her head tilted, the sleek helmet of her armor catching the sunlight and throwing shards of reflection across the jagged rocks. She didn't speak, or maybe she did, and I simply didn't understand the clicking, melodic tones of her language. But her pause lasted long enough for me to see something I hadn't expected: vulnerability. I had survived wars before. I'd lived on the fringe of human colonies where every transaction could be your last. But nothing had prepared me for the weight of her gaze. I felt seen, no exposed, and something inside me shifted. I took another step forward. The moment my boot struck the phosphorescent sand, the ground trembled slightly beneath the distant pulse of the city ruins. I saw her flinch, not from me, but from the vibration itself. And in that instant, I knew the truth. She wasn't a typical soldier. She was a relic of a war that had been forgotten by most, yet remembered in every scar etched into the planet. Her armor was scratched, battered in a way that spoke of countless battles, but the energy pulse along its seams flickered inconsistently. She was injured, alone, and possibly lost. I had no right to interfere, yet I couldn't turn away. "I can help you," I said, voice steady this time, though my hand shook. I reached into my pack, pulling out the medkit I had scavenged from the ruins of an old research station. My pulse quickened as I saw her hesitate once more. The pause that had drawn me here. Then she stepped back, and that was my first mistake. She wasn't moving fast, not in a way that would make her dangerous, but her hand flicked, and I realized she had activated a personal defense protocol. A thin, semi-transparent barrier shimmered into existence between us. The air itself vibrated with an almost imperceptible hum, making the hairs on my arms rise. I froze. Then, as if deciding something in that moment, she lowered her arm. The barrier dissipated with a soft sigh, like a whisper in the wind. I exhaled. Relief flooded me, but I knew it was temporary. Her pause had been deliberate, calculated. She was testing me, watching me, measuring whether I was friend, foe, or merely food. "I'm human," I said, slowly, carefully, hoping she understood the universal language of surrender. "I've seen your kind fight. I know what you are, but I'm not here to hurt you." She tilted her head again. This time, she spoke, or at least, she made a sound I could feel in my chest, a low vibration that seemed almost like curiosity. And then she turned away, walking toward the jagged cliffs, armor scraping softly against rock. I had a choice: follow or let her go. I followed. The cliffs led to an old military outpost, long abandoned, its walls scorched and crumbling. I could see why she had paused before. Anyone entering this place could be trapped in seconds by the collapsing structures. Yet she moved with grace, like she had mapped every inch of it. And as I stepped carefully behind her, I noticed the faint blue glow of her suit dimming. She was low on power, wounded. "Stop," I said, softly, my voice echoing the empty hallways. "You don't have to face this alone." She paused again. I swear the pause lasted an eternity, and in that silence, I felt something intimate, something dangerous. Trust. Not fully given, but acknowledged. Then came the first attack. From the shadows, a swarm of Zifferan scavengers, small, insectoid creatures with serrated limbs, leapt toward us. I fired my scavenge plasma pistol, hitting two in midair, but there were dozens. The alien soldier reacted instantly, spinning her lance in a deadly arc, energy crackling as the bodies of creatures fell around her. I moved closer, trying not to interfere, but instinct and adrenaline forced me to act. I threw myself in the path of one of the larger creatures, knocking it aside, my hands grazing her armor in the process. She didn't recoil. Instead, she paused mid-swing, looking down at me. Her helmet angled slightly, and I felt the weight of her judgment. And then she nodded, a small, almost imperceptible gesture. We fought side by side for what felt like hours, though in reality, it was probably minutes. Every pause she took, every flicker of hesitation, made me realize she wasn't just powerful. She was conscious of the world in a way her kind rarely allowed themselves to be. There was intelligence, strategy, and empathy. When the last scavenger fell, I was panting, covered in dust and scratches, and she stood before me, armor glowing faintly as her energy stabilized. For the first time, her stance softened fully. "You," I started, unsure what to say. My voice felt small in the vast, ruined hall. "You're incredible." She tilted her head, but didn't move. Her hand lifted slightly, almost like an invitation, or perhaps a test. I took it. The next hours, or maybe days, time was hard to measure on Zifra. 9 blurred into a strange routine. I learned her name, Caliph. She communicated through a combination of gestures and vibrations I slowly learned to interpret. She had been part of an elite unit, sent to guard a powerful artifact buried deep within the planet's core. But the war had shattered her command structure, leaving her stranded, cut off, and alone. I share my story, too, how I had been scavenging, how I had lost my crew months ago to another band of scavengers, and how I had barely survived. We were both survivors, though worlds apart. Every pause she took became a conversation in itself. A tilt of her head, a shift in stance, a subtle change in the hum of her armor, all conveyed more than words ever could. I began to understand her not just as a soldier, but as a being with fears, hopes, and perhaps even longing. And then the final test came. The artifact she had been guarding, a crystalline core, pulsing with energy, wasn't unclaimed. A rival faction, cybernetically enhanced marauders, had tracked her signal and arrived with a fleet. The walls of the outpost shook as massive engines landed nearby, and I knew we were outnumbered. Caliph paused, not in hesitation, but in calculation. She turned to me, and for the first time, removed her helmet. I saw her face, pale blue skin, eyes the color of molten silver, intricate markings across her cheeks, and she looked tired, vulnerable. "You must leave," she said. Her voice was musical, vibrating in my chest in a way that resonated deep in my bones. "I'm not leaving you," I said, stepping forward. She paused. That pause, longer, heavier than any before, made my stomach churn. Finally, she nodded once. Side by side, we faced the marauders. The battle was brutal. Energy weapons tore through walls, sparks flew, and the air was thick with ozone. Caliph moved like a storm incarnate. Every strike precise, every defense calculated. I stayed close, picking off targets that slipped past her, covering her flank, and in moments of brief pause, catching my breath and meeting her gaze. When the dust settled, we stood among ruins, victorious but exhausted. She turned to me, armor cracked, energy flickering, and for the first time, fully human in her expression. If alien could ever be human. "You stayed," she said simply. "I did," I replied, "and I'll keep staying, as long as it takes." She studied me for a moment, then reached out, placing a hand against my chest. The energy from her suit pulsed into me, not painfully, but with a strange warmth, binding our understanding, our trust, perhaps even something deeper. And in that pause, that one deliberate, calculated moment that started it all, I realized I found not just a warrior, but a companion, a confidant, maybe even something more. The universe was vast, dangerous, and unforgiving. But with Caleb by my side, I felt ready to face whatever came next. Even if it meant fighting alone, together,